In tonight's edition of the Deep Dive, we want to take a look at two issues. One about the guns being imported into Jamaica and guns and ammunition being brought into the country from the United States. One. And number two, the former PNP um, Minister of National Security, Peter Bunting, criticizing the Prime Minister's characterization of a mass shooting on Walton Park Road some time ago, um, characterizing the Prime Minister's characterization as euphemistic. To those of you who, I don't want to make it seem too complicated, but he is basically criticizing the Prime Minister, who is not the Minister of National Security. There's a Minister of National Security. He's criticizing the Minister of National Security. He's criticizing the Prime Minister for not labeling the shooting incident the way he wanted to he felt that it should be labeled or characterized. Now, the reports say that Bunting says that it's causing harm to Jamaica's name abroad. Look, I don't want to start on Peter Dumpting. I mean, sorry, Peter Bunting right now. But Peter Bunting was Minister of National Security. And when crime got out of control, Bunting's response was that the only response to crime was divine intervention. Now, I'm going to address that because as a Christian, I know that God empowered us to do what we must do for ourselves. So I'm going to set that aside for right now. Peter Bunting. Peter Bunting. Peter Bunting. Okay. All right. I don't want to make light of this issue. So here's the thing. Um, the the constant problem that Jamaica faces with this influx of mass amount of guns coming into the country and ammunition. I have consistently maintained that it is Jamaicans who are bringing in the guns into the country. And I've said so in previous edition of this program we call a deep dive. I have consistently said it is Jamaicans who are bringing in the guns. Jamaicans, people who are traveling from Jamaica to the United States or who live in the United States but travel on a regular basis to Jamaica. Now, I've been out of law enforcement for a long time, so I'm not claiming to have any connections or any knowledge, but I know this is rather simple. So I have, from my humble perspective, criticized the police for not following up on what I believe are cases that could easily be solved if they really want to bring these perpetrators to justice. I fundamentally believe that these people can be brought to justice because it seemed to me, and this is just a hunch, that there are some people shipping guns from the United States to Jamaica. When the guns go to Jamaica, they are going down there and have people clear it, even if they don't clear it for themselves. And they're taking control of those weapons and distributing them, selling them, or whatever they're doing. Now, I don't claim to have any knowledge as to the purpose, but I know ultimately the weapons being shipped into the country serves no useful purpose, no purpose that's going to benefit the larger Jamaica. It serves very narrow interests of those who are shipping the weapons into the country, whether it's financial. I don't think those weapons are intended for any coup attempt or anything like that. But ultimately, unintentionally, it could end up becoming a situation like that where there are enough guns in the hands of enough people that we find ourselves in the situation that Haiti finds itself today. So that is an issue, and I've continually criticized the police and the investigated harm of the police. And let me hasten to say that I am very proud of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and the transition it is making. This JCF is getting better than the JCF that I served in the early 80s to early 90s before I exited after a 10-year period. And I would love at this point to serve in the investigative arm of the JCF right now to lend whatever talents I have to the investigative arm of the Jamaica Constabulary Force to serve the country that I love. Now, I have always said that I fundamentally believe that the police can do a better job, even with the limited resources they have. But I also know that they're doing a good job. They're doing the best that they can under the circumstances, even though I believe they can do better, especially when it comes to the weapons flowing into the country. Well, I got some good news today. Got some really good news because I learned that um, some progress have been made on that front. That detectives from the Firearm and Narcotics Division have charged a dual citizen American Jamaican for last month's seizure of 66 firearms and 45,000 rounds of ammunition at the Port Bustamante in Kingston. We understand that 36-year-old Davian Roberts, a truck driver of Columbus, Georgia, in the United States, and Corville Gardens, Kingston 20, was charged on Monday with three cases of trafficking prohibited weapons under the Firearms Act and failure to comply with a production order under the Cybercrimes Act. Reports are that about 1:40 p.m. on Monday, February 17, personnel from the Jamaica Customs Agency detected anomalies within a shipment of and contacted police. Both agencies carried out a physical search of the shipment, which yielded 50 handguns, 16 rifles, 4,737 assorted rounds of ammunition, and 83 assorted magazines. Subsequent investigation revealed Davian Roberts was the shipper and intended recipient. So hold on. Here is proof. And again, each person named is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. That's the way the law works. But here it is. This is exactly what I said I thought was happening. People were shipping from the United States and they were going to Jamaica and receiving the shipment. And even if they don't receive them, if they don't go, take a truck or a car or whatever, or a van and go to the wharf to pick up that shipment, they'll send somebody to pick up the shipment. And this is exactly what happened in this case. This is exactly what seemed to happen. Because this guy who was arrested was not arrested when he attempted to pick up the shipment. He was arrested. He was subsequently arrested afterwards. So my theory has been right all along. This is what these guys are doing who come up here and they're shipping guns and ammunition from most of these southern states, whether it's Florida, Virginia, Georgia, and they shipping them to Jamaica and going down to receive their shipment. And so when these things happen, we have to wonder, when the security forces detect one shipment, we have to wonder how many shipments have gotten through. That's the big worry for our small, tiny nation. That's the big worry. So we understand on Wednesday, February 19th, Southborough, Portmore and St. Catherine and Roberts was apprehended in Southborough. On Tuesday, January 25th, while the accused was in custody, he was served with a duly signed production order from a judge, which mandated him to provide a passcode for his iPhone 12 Pro. He refused to comply with the order and was subsequently slapped with the additional charge of failure to comply with a production order. And of course, the police are patting themselves on the back and making statements about how they intend to stem the flow of illegal guns. As a former officer, I'll tell you, I'm not that convinced. I am proud of the work they're doing, but I believe this is far more entrenched and far more endemic than the police recognize or the nation recognize. And as I said in a previous video, it is people who have access to the United States. It is not Americans shipping guns into Jamaica. The American system is lax because shipment leaving the United States should be under the same scrutiny as shipment coming into the United States. You can't bring an apple from Jamaica into the United States. You can't bring anything without them all over your behind for it. But you have dozens and dozens and dozens, and in many cases, I would surmise, hundreds of guns leaving the United States for smaller countries that don't have the resources to deal with apprehension and detection. So yeah, that's a big problem. But uh, I hope that going forward, the parliament will stop banging on the desk and having superficial, long, superficial, drawn out debates over nothing about Portmore and naming Portmore and self-aggrandizing about whose idea it was to start Portmore, as if that matters one F today. Yeah, the self-aggrandizement that we see in the parliament, instead of um, you know, coming up with solutions to aid in the country's crime fighting struggle that it's engaged in. But this has never been the reality for the People's National Party, whether in government or in opposition. They are all about grandstanding and subverting the rule of law. Sorry. Now, let us move over to the next issue of Peter Bunting. Peter Bunting, excuse me, criticized the Prime Minister Andrew Holness, for not characterizing a shooting the way he believes the shooting should have been characterized. Now, it's remarkable that Peter Bunting went after the Prime Minister instead of going after his compatriot on the other side, Horace Chang, who is the Minister of National Security. One would have thought that if Peter Bunting intended to criticize anybody, which he has a right to do, he would have gone after his contemporary from the other side. But that's not what he did. He went after Prime Minister Holness and decided to criticize the Prime Minister for not characterizing a shooting on Walton Park Road the way he wanted it to characterize it. And then the funny thing is, he's worried about the shooting and how it's happening, how it's played out in the United States and networks all across the United States, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Who cares? There's a mass shooting in the United States every day. I don't see them worrying about what Jamaica think about mass shootings in the United States. They're busy with their racism in the United States and worrying about how many people they can deport out of the United States. But let me just play the story for you, and then we can have a conversation.
Park Road in St. Andrew, leaving 5 men dead. Opposition spokesman on citizen security and the former Minister of National Security Peter Bunting is calling out Prime Minister Andrew Holness, declaring he is downplaying mass shooting incidents. This latest mass shooting has already made international news, being seen in ABC News, the Associated Press, and more.
Okay, before we go further, the fact that we're in 2025, we're actually in the digital age. We're in the age of technology. Information gets zoomed around the world in nanoseconds. That's what the technological age is. Who cares what is zoomed or what is being seen in the United States? Nobody cares. The United States has more crime than anywhere else, literally more crime than anywhere else. So what are we talking about here? Let me finish this.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness's response to this latest mass shooting incident in Walton Park Road, St. Andrew, which claimed 5 lives, is quite bizarre. His characterization of these killings as a, quote, multiple victim violent incident, end quote.
Wait. Isn't that what it was? Wait. Seriously. Wasn't it a multiple victim mass incident? Violent incident? Isn't that what it was? What better characterization? Isn't that what it was? Let's hear what Peter Bunting thought it should be.
Is an euphemistic attempt to downplay the frequent incidents of mass shootings scarring Jamaica's international image.
Jamaica's international image. has long been scarred as a violent nation. So Peter Bunting parading as a crusader against crime is the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. It's a load of crock. This is the same guy who was Minister of National Security. This is the same guy who presided over 1,600 homicides in 1 year under his watch. The same guy. The highest murder rate, and he has the nerve to talk about the scarring of Jamaica. Jamaica's image has long been scarred after 18 and a half years of PMP rule and the abandonment of the rule of law under PJ Patterson, Portia Simpson Miller, and people like Peter Bunting. Do they think people forget? These are the guys who said anything and run with it and turn Jamaica over to criminals. Abandon the JCF, put every police officer in uniform or some stupid looking vest like they were working on construction site as flagmen. Do they think that we don't know? Or that people forgot? Under their stewardship, not a single detective was trained in a 10-year period. That's what Peter Bunting presided over. And he has the nerve and the gall, the temerity to talk about scarring Jamaica's image. It was under his watch, under his party's watch, that Jamaica got to the stage that now this government is trying to return it to some state of normalcy. And he has the goddamn nerve to talk about it.
And devastating many local communities. Mr. Honus's minimization of the horrible incident is a disservice to the victims and their grieving families. No amount of public relations spin can obscure the grim reality of an increased...
Excuse me. There's an election due in a matter of months in Jamaica. For those of you who have heard this nonsense, this crack of shit, all it is about is posturing. When he was at the rudder, when he was at the tiller, when he had the reins, excuse me, when he was in charge of national security, he wasn't talking like this. He said Jamaica's only salvation on the issue of crime was divine intervention. Yeah, that's what he said, excuse me. He said Jamaica, only divine intervention could save Jamaica, while he was the man in charge of keeping the nation safe. You can't make that up. And he has the nerve to come here and talk about scarring Jamaica. And for those of you police officers who support this Peter Bunting, I'm speaking directly to you in Jamaica right now. You know what he's doing? He's throwing his weight behind Indicom and Jamaicans for Justice to criticize you in the good fight that you're waging. And I know that has the police vote, so does the country. So you can all decide if you want to vote for this moron. This pandering, posturing moron known as Peter Bunting.
Increasing trend of mass shootings in our nation.
While Prime Minister Holness yesterday, Tuesday, November 26, 2024, visited the area along with the Minister of National Security, the Police Commissioner, and other law enforcement officials.
We'll just leave that at that. Yeah. These people, all they do is criticize. They have no solutions. They make grand statements, and they talk about how they love the poor. Well, one of the things that I would like to say before I go this evening is that this party has never been of any good to the country. Not on the issues that matter. They are great at exploding the national debt. They're great at running public institutions into the ground. They're great at padding public payrolls to satisfy party hacks and functionaries. They are great at padding the public sector wage bill. Those are the things they're great at. Paying off their political functionaries with jobs that they don't even show up to. They're great at that and running the country into the earth. Nothing and bilking the national coffers. That's what they are great at. Nothing else. And every time the other party attempts to remediate an issue or to correct an issue or to add infrastructure, much needed infrastructure to the country, they talk about how it was in the pipeline. They had it in the pipeline. Everything that the other party does in government, they criticize. They have one goal, and that is to see Jamaica impoverished, remain impoverished, because that's the only way they can win elections. Because when people are educated, when people have intelligence, when people become smart, the PNP becomes obsolete, because the people who are in charge of the PNP will always be the people who are in charge of the PNP. But on average, the regular citizen does not benefit. So the minute that people gain education, the PNP become less and less and less relevant. Because here's the deal. What they're selling, nobody around the world is buying. Nobody's buying socialism. Nobody's buying big government. Everybody who knows anything about anything knows that government cannot be the big employer of labor. Okay? Government job is to provide infrastructure. That's it. That's what government is supposed to do. Build roads, put it in water supply, electricity, put it in broadband now, schools, hospitals, police stations, and all the other public sector things that the government's supposed to do. And to provide the number one prerogative of any government is to secure its people. This has been so since medieval times, when countries or cities, they built walls to protect their inhabitants. That's what they did. So if you cannot protect the people in your country, what purpose do you serve? And the PNP has never served that purpose. Never served that purpose. Because first of all, they have no respect for law enforcement. Zero respect for the rule of law. Zero. So they don't get to talk about crime with any degree of authenticity. How can they talk about crime? They have no authority to talk about crime. They're the perpetrators of crime. In their party, you have in their political party, you have criminals. People convicted on multiple drug counts in their party as party leaders in their party. There's no such thing in the Jamaican Labour Party. So who are they fooling? The country's on a right path right now, a path that I personally believe is the best path, a path of lowering crime, working assiduously to lower crime, and thereby attracting private sector involvement in the Jamaican economy. Because it is private sector that provides real jobs, not the public sector. We need to have a safe environment for people to invest so that the country can begin to become all that it can be. But Peter Bunting has no authority, no credibility on this issue. So nobody should listen to Peter Bunting and his band of the 40 thieves in that party who are trying desperately to regain power. We'll talk again. This was the deep dive. We'll take another dive tomorrow. Good night.